All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode 238, and all three of us are back after a few weeks of rotating out and, taking some other duties. Well, except for GameLogIQ, he has been the constant, the steady, and tonight he's on the boards, keeping us moving forward. So we'll give him a moment to get set. Tao, I was out last week, but you were here. But it's been a while since you and I have been back in the same podcasting place.
That's right.
How are you doing?
We're two different people, just in case people were wondering.
Just in case. I have a really great fake beard that I can put on.
Hey, just throw it on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, maybe one of us is recording. Who knows?
We commissioned some album art that I think makes that difference pretty distinct and clear.
Yeah, that's true. Our chibi figures, yeah.
All right, so that was also not only Tao, but GameLogIQ over there as well with our album art comment. Gentlemen, it is good to be back. Thank you for giving me the breather last week. We've got a lot of games to talk about, a little bit of news, not too much though. Does seem, looking through the news stories this past week, it has felt kind of like a slow news week. And maybe that's just because maybe nothing's really tripping my fancy, but it also is logical that we had a lot of news coming out at the end of March because it was the end of the fiscal year. We got a number of things that came out right in the beginning of April. In it's the new fiscal year. There's some announcements coming, but we're still getting bits and pieces here. So we'll have a chance to talk about a little bit of that as well tonight. But first, let's go ahead and talk about some games. So here on Enough to Keep Going, we are going to talk about we're going to start with some new releases. We have a Picks Play once a month. We give ourselves an assignment, a theme, and give us a chance to go out and explore that theme and come back to talk about. Actually, next week is the week that we will do that, and it is a streaming exploration. So explore, take a chance, try a little bit of game streaming services, whether that's Stadia, whether that's GeForce, whether that's Luna, or Xbox xCloud, PlayStation Now, technically, right? This was all based around that we had the announcements of the multi-tier PlayStation Plus Premium Advanced Edition, whatever it was called. But yes, so we are exploring next week. We'll have a chance to talk about some streaming. But tonight, we're going to start with some new releases. And gentlemen, I'm going to start first. So this was a game that I just found out about last week. Art style totally sold me on it. And I've had the chance to play it a little bit. It launched in early access yesterday. So this is MythForce by Beamdog. Beamdog they've done the kind of updates and re-releases of Neverwinter Nights, of Icewind Dale, Planetscape Torment, and the Baldur's Gate series. So they've been working on that. And it shows, I guess. So I'll get MythForce out of the way. It is aesthetically designed like an early 80s kind of action cartoon. It has that maybe Thundar the Barbarian, Hanna-Barbera feel to it. They've referenced kind of He-Man. There's some pieces there. I think the art style, there's a filter on here that makes the art style kind of have just a soft fuzziness, not like a CRT scan lines, but just kind of the soft fuzziness that your mind remembers of those 80s kind of hand-drawn cell animation cartoons. So the art style, for me, is really effective. It works really well. The gameplay itself, it's early access, I think that is what I can say. Like it was stable, but because it's first person, so this is a first person roguelike. You have 4 classes. You've got a hunter, kind of ranged abilities. You've got a rogue with quick strikes. You have a mage, and you have a knight. Kind of your traditional kind of BioWare D&D type of roles here. And because you're playing this in a first person, it took me a while to kind of retrain my brain that this is not an action RPG, that you have a stamina meter, that your attacks take your stamina down, and as your stamina is worn down, the screen goes a little fuzzy, you're delayed in your strikes. So you really have to balance your stamina meter. You have to be strategic in your attacks and not just kind of hack and slash your way through. And that feels like once I framed it that these are the people. Beamdog is made of former BioWare studio people, right? These are long in the tooth, long history of classic kind of CRPGs, and so it has that feel. Like it is very intentional in its actions and its movement. There's the movement speed is slower, and it all makes sense within the aspect of a D&D piece, but there is a juxtaposition because you feel like you should be able to run, and the mobs that come at you, even when they're not scaled to groups, the slow speed really does make that difficult. And so all that said, I've been playing for a couple of days, leveling up some characters, unlocking some artifacts. So in like other rogue-based games, run-based games, you're going to level up. You have some persistent progression of artifacts that add stamina so you can run more or attack more. Power, damage, mana, your traditional kind of buffs and that you would end up getting. And that all starts to make a difference. So as I was leveling up my character because of the progression, it felt a little more fluid. It's still a very slow-paced game, but it felt like I found a rhythm with it. And so I was really enjoying it. I've had a chance to try out all 4 different classes. It is difficult with a melee class because you do get swarmed and you take a lot of damage. And so I'll be curious to see in the early access piece, like this is planned to be early access for about a year. They've got a couple of updates that they're planning every couple months with big updates and kind of tweaks and patches on a regular basis. So I'll be curious to see how it develops, if any of the balance changes get tweaked. I really love the art style. I am enjoying the combat. It feels very similar to Gunfire Reborn, which I've talked about on this podcast in the fall, which is it's like if you made Slay the Spire a first-person shooter and, added some class abilities. Gunfire Reborn moves a lot faster, but it has a very similar, MythForce has a very similar piece where you are moving between room to room. There is some procedural generation. How much we're seeing yet because it's early access, and really there's one world, one level, one stage, but you have multiple iterations of it, but you're there's only one at this point, and they're slowly adding as they build them. So that's MythForce. It is for people my age, there's a lot of charm to it. It is hard to say that there's $30 worth of charm to it at this point. I I'm finding some enjoyment, but I know we talked about this as a game night. I think the challenge of it being a game night, if we are just popping into it, is that early going, the difficulty is still tuned pretty punishingly. Like, once you unlock some of the upgrades and the artifacts, and you've got some things that are persistent with your character, it starts to go a little better. But I think it's and the fact that there's only one kind of world at this point, one major stage, makes it difficult to say, you know. I think over time, over this course of the year, as they start adding more, there's going to be a lot to like. I mean, Gunfire Reborn, when it launched out of early access, has a ton of stuff in it, but it was also in early access for a year and a half. So, any questions on MythForce, gentlemen?
Is there, did they give like a release date or any kind of release window that they're thinking of? Like a full release, when one's going to be fully released?
So the what they've messaged out there is that they plan to keep it in early access for about a year.
So talk to me a little bit about the visual. You said what attracted to you right off the bat was the visual style, the artistic style. Is it pretty similar to Wildermyth, or what kind of differences do you see between it and the Wildermyth artistic style?
Wildermyth is a little more art booky, little more. I mean, there's a little more book aspect to it. Here, it's cell shaded, but it feels like hand drawn animation. It feels like, it has that feel of a Hanna-Barbera late 70s, early 80s type of cartoon, and it holds up. It stays pretty consistent. There's a little bit of times when they use a little bit of more polygons and you can see, but for the most part, from what I've seen, it's very consistent. The character designs hold to this theme. There is a filter on it that you even get a little bit of artifacting as it goes through, like if you were watching this on a CRTV. So they really commit to that. And as somebody who grew up with after school cartoons and, has fond memories and nostalgia for that, it's very enjoyable to jump in, do a run for 20 minutes to a half hour, and get kind of progress a little bit and jump back out. I think I have my longest play session has been maybe an hour, but it's something where it's easy to jump in and out of. But yeah, so I think that's why aesthetically it feels very successful, because it really remains, there's a consistency to what it's trying to accomplish.
So kind of putting your comic book hat on then, so it sounds to me like there's a little more cartooning kind of in the MythForce approach and style, and that the Wildermyth sounds like maybe there's kind of a little more, roughing in the interior designs of the characters that you might have. It sounds like MythForce is a kind of pretty flat kind of.
Yes, there's a lot of flat feeling to it. Yep.
Okay, cool. And then, but MythForce is an action RPG, right? It's not turn-based, right?
No, it's not turn-based. It is an action RPG. I framed it in the way that I did is because the action is slower, and because of the quick stamina meter, it is not button clicky. It is not fast action. It is not Diablo like action RPG. There is loot that has levels of rarity, so it hits all these different pieces of my brain that say, yeah, this is good. And I wish that there was more there yet to kind of have a feeling. But at the same time, I'm going to be really interested to go along with the developer and see what they change, see how they adjust it. And, that they've stuck with Baldur's Gate, and multiple patches as things that they've released it on consoles and on mobile. They've provided a number of different releases there. So I think they've got a good commitment here. And one of the news stories that I think also is why this may have a long tail to it is that Beamdog was just purchased by Aspire Media. And Aspire Media has done a number of different ports. A lot of the newer Star Wars ports have been done by Aspire Media. Aspire Media is part of the larger Embracer group, the THQ Nordic. So there's a lot of support and a larger structure. Well, I shouldn't say there is a lot of a support structure. Whether or not there's support in terms of financial and resources, I do not know. But the acquisition brings them into potentially a more stable funding piece that would allow them to continue to work on MythForce without having to sell a certain threshold in early access to keep funding it.
And Aspire is working on one of the KOTOR remakes. I cannot keep straight which one.
I think they've done the kind of ports, but yes, they were the ones who was doing the full-on remake for PlayStation 5.
I can also not keep up with the Embracer group because they're studios by studios.
Yeah, right? It's huge.
Yeah, I like the beginning of that article where it says Aspire is a subsidiary of Saber Interactive, which is a subsidiary of Embracer Group. It's like it just keeps going down.
Well, the interesting thing, of course, is Saber Interactive Group, its developers are actually predominantly located in Russia, so they were the ones who just recently had The Witcher 3 remake pulled from them. You know, no one knows for certain if that was because large amounts of the development, but I can imagine that those are very awkward scrums if you're a development studio in Poland talking to a bunch of developers in Russia with current world events what they are.
That's understandable, yeah. All right, I got one more new game. This is a quick hit here. This is only $4.99 on the Switch and on Steam. It is Demon Turf Neosplash. So Demon Turf was a 3D platformer that came out last fall. I talked about it actually. I think I even talked about it on our Superlative show. It's a small studio, indie studio, and has been picked up by, published by Playtronic. So the Yooka-Laylee, former Rare developers. And it is very much in that vein of an N64, GameCube era 3D platformer. The art style is going back to MythForce and the 2D aspect. The art style is very 2D. You are a 2D character set in 3D on a 3D plane, and so there is some adjustment, but it's also creates a real kind of unique aesthetic to it. And so the full game, $20, $25. It's been somewhere in there before. This is 10 levels, all platforming. These are like speedrun challenges almost. They are platforming challenges, and you can unlock a few characters. There's not a whole lot of story. There's a little bit of story, but unlike the main game, there's not nearly the same level of story. There's combat was in the main game as well. And so now it's just simply platforming, and actually it's a lot of fun for $5 or for free because I had $5 worth of gold coins on Switch. I'm enjoying it. I really enjoyed the first game. I burned out a little bit on it because of some of the combat. So for me, this was a great option of like, I just want to have some fun platforming. I don't need so it's quick pick up and play. I can play a little bit. I can play a few levels. I enjoy the art style. The soundtrack is great again. So it's a lot of fun, and it's only $5.
So do you feel like kind of in design speak, it sounds like this would be similar in ethos and motif to N+?
Not that minimalist, not that severe of kind of speed platforming. There's a timer, and there's different medals for different speed. I guess so. I guess I would say I could see where it is kind of like N+ in that, shifting it into a 3D plane. I think that the challenge where I'm struggling, right, is like when I think of speed running platformers, I almost always think of 2D, right? I think of Super Meat Boy. I think of N Plus. I think of, I even think of New Super Mario Brother Luigi. Right, like lots of things in that 2D plane. I'm struggling to think about one that comes from a place of a 3D perspective that forces you into kind of the speed running piece. But one of the things that I found the most enjoyment out of the original game was kind of the movement combo, right? You've got wall jumps, you have the ability to turn into kind of a bat. And so you can chain together a couple of different jump moves that can allow you access into areas that you might not have been able to just through normal means. And that was part of the fun exploration aspect in the original game. And now it becomes part of kind of how do you cheat a level with this game. So
I hate to give you a crackback, but one thing I forgot to ask you on MythForce is MythForce 3D, or is it isometric?
No, it's a first-person perspective,
Oh, wow. Okay.
3D. Yeah, I mean, but this is where the art style really works. Like, it doesn't feel like it's a flat cell shaded. It feels like I'm moving through a cartoon. So, all right.
Sorry, one quick question. Actually, on both. But how did you find out about these two games?
MythForce had a number of trailers last week. A number of major sites picked it up, and just watching the trailer sucked me in. Right, I'm a sucker for 80s animation.
80s cartoons. Yeah.
Yes, and Demon Turf. I knew about the original game and saw it pop up on the Switch in the eShop, and was like, oh. It was kind of a stealth release that they put out a press release the day of that it went live, and it was just there. So it was a surprise to me that I found it as well.
Yeah, I think MythForce has been getting a decent amount of buzz. I think it's benefited from some recent kind of indie showcases that have just been timed kind of perfectly for it going to early access. And I know the kind of funny guys were live streaming it on their Twitch
they were
channel.
streaming it. Yep, it got shown at GDC is kind of where it first got revealed. So, yep, it's gotten some good press.
Okay.
All right, Tao, I'm going to take it over to you for some baseball talk.
Objection.
Yeah. So
I have one interjection just before you start, Tal. I just want to give you a heads
Okay.
up. I listened to last week's episode. I have some challenges for you, but I just want to,
okay.
just so it doesn't shock you as we're going through it, I just want to prepare you. They're not bad
Okay.
challenges. They're just questions I had. That link from last week's conversation over into this one.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I've been playing MLB the Show 22 still, mostly on through xCloud, like either through my phone or if I'm here on my Series X, I just play it through the cloud through there. Excuse me. And then I think this past week it was mostly, like I said, it was mostly xCloud, and then I have played on my Xbox One X, which I actually haven't installed on there. So, but yeah, I've just been going through. Usually when I jump on there, I'll jump on there and just do some of the challenges. I forgot what they're called now. Not the challenges. There's a weekly challenge, but then there's the other. DB, if you can help me out, what's the would they have like a monthly kind of challenges? But I forgot what it's called.
In Diamond Dynasty?
No, just it's like a mode by itself. It's like right next to the play of the week or the weekly challenge. Can't remember what it's called, but anyways, they kind of change it out like every week, I think, and then like every month they have like a new set of challenges and stuff like that. But I can't remember what it is. But I usually jump in and do that, and then I might play like a game or two through my my season or the show like main story, kind of building up my character. So, but yeah, just going through that and enjoying that. Like I mentioned last week, I'm actually been doing pretty decent. So it's, I don't know, kind of surprising. So I don't know, because I really, like I mentioned last week, I was doing pretty horrible, especially near the end where I stopped playing because I was just like I couldn't even hit anything. I think I was like at a 130 something, like ERA or something like that. It was pretty terrible, or batting average, excuse me. It was pretty terrible. So, but now I'm actually doing kind of hybrid fielding, which is right field, and then I do relief pitching every so often. So it's kind of nice to do that. Which
So I two-way player.
Yeah. So I picked that originally on the last one, but then I just when I was going through like the prompts at one point, I switched off of it by mistake. So I was just like all outfield and stuff. So that might have been it too. I don't know. Maybe it's the the games where I only had to pitch like an inning or two. It's kind of breaks up the monotony of just batting all the time and fielding. So it's kind of nice. But and I don't know if they've always done this, but at least on 21, I like how you can kind of like, I don't say fast forward the game, but it just kind of brings you up, like when you're batting, it brings you up to your at bat, and then it just kind of skips everything else after that. So it's kind of nice that
and Road to the Show, it kind of character locks you so that you stick only with that action.
And I like that. I like kind of quick hits, so I can get like a couple of games in, maybe even 3, depending on what's going to go on. So just go ahead, GameLogIQ. Shoot. What are your challenges?
So my first question was, this might be my only question because I may not be able to remember the others, but with regards to your xCloud gaming, right? Mm-hmm. So you've tried the touch controls you don't like. You've tried the Razer Kishi or whichever variant you have with the widespread controls, right, which you only like in certain situations.
That's what I'm mainly using right now. Yeah.
You've also said you don't like just a regular Xbox controller with the clamp. So
yeah, I mean it's all right, but yeah.
Is it? And then you mentioned that when I said like when I do cloud gaming, right? I predominantly I play on a tablet. I don't play on a phone. With a controller in my hand. And you said, well, if I get a tablet, then I may as well just play on a TV and skip the whole cloud gaming thing. Is it? Do you think? And I'm not trying to be wise, but do you think that the potential is, because I know you're going through this science experiment, right? Which is, I mean, the type of stuff that we do. Do you think it's that you just don't like gaming on a phone and therefore don't really like cloud streaming and would be happier in kind of your entertainment return on investment per time spent gaming, just gaming the traditional way?
I mean, ultimately, yeah. I mean, I'd rather be on like my monitor here or my TV upstairs. I got like a 65-inch, I think, TV, and then this monitor is 32-inch. And yeah, I mean, it's always gonna be better because obviously this one I'm a lot closer to it. Big, giant TV. I'm like, 5 or 6 feet, 7 feet away or whatever. That's a lot better. But I think it's nice. The cloud game, like I said, it depends on the game. Like if I want to sit there and play a shooter, yeah, I don't think I'm, like I said, I tried Outriders and I was like that just didn't go well. I've tried Fortnite. I mean, like even on the Switch, like I'll play Fortnite on handheld and on the couch, but it's like I can't. I have to have that bigger screen. So it really depends on the game. Like for baseball, that's fine. I mean, and like I said, it's just like little quick bites that I go into these games or into these game sessions. That's fine. Probably like when I start trying other games, maybe more indie titles, that'll probably work out better for me too, because it's just like smaller, like if it's a side-scrolling game or something like that. It'd be fine. And actually, when I was playing, and I have to go back to this, which is what I say about a lot of games, but Origami 2, that's fine too, because it's a slower paced game. It's not, it's not like Ninja Gaiden or something. Like I'd have to play that on a bigger TV, or I'd like to play that on a bigger TV. It'd be a lot better. This is more like a Tenchu kind of stealthy kind of game, so that was fine too. But yeah, I think it just depends on the game ultimately.
So I guess I'll hold off maybe on some of the other going down that line of question, because part of my question for you guys as we do this live streaming, cloud streaming thing for the Pix Place assignment is, like, what's the use case? Like, the only reason I live stream, I mean, so my conventional tiebreaker is I'm not gonna cloud stream gaming at home when I have my big metal boxes here, because I have my big metal boxes here. The whole point, the cloud streaming is to be the alternative when I go on travel, so that I don't have to lug a big 10-pound gaming laptop plus its power supply, right? Or even my Nintendo Switch, right? It's just been, I'm going to carry a tablet or I'm going to carry a phone on travel, particularly when I'm going to see like my in-laws or something, and I'm like, okay, given this loadout, it's easiest just for me to just chuck a controller in my bag, right, and just cloud stream when I get there. Or even if I have to take a low-powered laptop, right, to do work or whatever, it's still preferable that I could do cloud streaming that way, because then I don't have to take the gaming laptop. I can take like an ultra portable or something like that. So then the only reason that I cloud game at home is simply to keep those devices warmed up, so that if there's an update or some kind of wonky thing with the app, or they change security, so, right, just to periodically refresh and make sure that everything's working so that when I do go on travel, again, I can just chuck it in the bag and I don't have to worry about doing pre-flight checkout and all that stuff of the equipment. So definitely a question for me next week will be, as you guys are, playing with the cloud streaming, is just kind of where is it landing on fitting in your lives? And I'm curious about continuing to pull this thread of, like, if you're largely dissatisfied with it, right, do you think it's still going to hit your use case profile? If your use case profile is also travel, do you think it's going to fill that need, when you go on travel? Or are you finding that it's turning out that it will likely be better suited to you chucking your Nintendo Switch in your bag, when you go on travel?
All right. Anything else on MLB the Show, Tom?
No, that's it for right now. I
You're
still
playing
got
Road to the Show, and you're playing, and you're just doing some of the challenges.
Yeah, I got to do. I haven't done it. I haven't tried it yet. I mean, I'm sure it's the same thing, but on 22. But like the home run derby, I'd like to jump back into. I did that a few times too, back on 21. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Did MLB the Show 21 just stay in Game Pass until it was superseded by 22?
Yes, it was there until it was superseded. Yep.
Cool. So that, one of my questions was, are you concerned about getting into your career and then the title going away? But if this is one of these ones that's going to stick around, again, you start to ask the question, well, why don't you just offer the title as a subscription thing, and a subscription within a subscription, and not iterate with a new release every year?
So I've also been playing some MLB 22. I've been playing both the Road to the Show and the March to October mode. So March to October mode it works it's really enjoyable in the kind of short snippets, kind of like you were talking about, Tao, in terms of Road to the Show, because you end up with, in a series, you may only play three innings. And if you do well, you will highlight, you'll get you catch on fire and you get momentum, and that'll carry you into the next couple. If you do poorly, that cools you down and you can lose some momentum and lose some games. So it comes back and forth. You're kind of jumping in and out. It puts you in situations, or it has you player lock with a certain character. Maybe you've called somebody up from the minors, and you do get some options to call people up or to trade people. And when you do that, then they player lock. And so you're playing the field of that position, and then you're also only batting during when that person comes up. And so I had a game the other night where my character control person hit really well, but I still lost because the rest of the team didn't. So and it also means that I'm already into September in a series. So it allows you to kind of move through pretty quickly, but it's been really enjoyable. It's been fun. As somebody who's played mainly the Road to the Show and a little bit of Diamond Dynasty, it's been fun to kind of move through a season this way. All right, let's move on from some sports talk into, I don't even have a good transition for this one. So GameLogic, you've got some Bioshock conversation to have here. So take us through your Bioshock experiences and how it got back into your play cycle.
Yeah, well, Bioshock Remastered is a little bit like baseball, right? No, that was probably one of the non sequiturs that I've said.
It was a good try.
Let's see. How did this one get on my? I think
It is set in a time when baseball was the most popular sport in America.
Well,
yes.
There you go. I think this is. I've been one of my. Like I mentioned, one of my kind of gaming assignments that I've been giving myself is to go back and revisit particular years in gaming history, kind of in this decade. So I think this was my 2007 assignment. So I went back and revisited Bioshock via Remastered, and also kind of had a chance to kind of play with some hardware while I was testing it out or playing with it. And so I've been running this on the Alder Lake box that I built, and I ran part of this while it had the 50 AMD Radeon RX 5700 XT still in it. I have since upgraded that box to an NVIDIA RTX 3070 Ti. So both of those are good news stories. The unfortunate thing is that they're such good news stories that, at least for some practical reasons, I maybe arguably shouldn't have upgraded or didn't need to upgrade. So on both, now I've also switched monitors there, so I was on a 25-inch 1080p 240 hertz monitor, and when I upgraded the video card, I moved a 27-inch 144 hertz monitor over there. In both cases, both of those cards put out more frames than those monitors are capable of displaying with that particular game. So again, I go back to, well, I guess I didn't really gain anything there, but it was still a good time. Running it with HDR on, the remastered version of Bioshock looks great. At the stage of the game that I'm at, unfortunately, I am proving just how much of a Bioshock noob I am by way of the fact that it was one of those rainy day games that I purchased but never really got around to finishing it. And so I've come across the U invent for the first time and didn't realize there was kind of this notion of crafting in the game. And again, that's partially on me, but I will also say, when you kind of like we've talked about with Death Stranding is a much more timely and pertinent case study. But kind of the same thing with Bioshock, there's not really a lot of talk of the fact that there is crafting in Bioshock. And so even if I go back to 2007 and the marketing around it, that wasn't really surfaced or presented as a factor in the game.
Yeah, no, right. I don't think that's from all the press that game got, that was, maybe it was buried in a review, but it was never highlighted in a meaningful way because, yeah, just wasn't.
Right. So there's the U invent. There's also machines that you run across that do weapons upgrades, which I also didn't know. So it actually changes, good on the game, it actually changes the design appearance of the weapon, which you can see, in your first person view. So, when you upgrade the pistol, it looks like a different pistol. So I don't know how much runway there is on that. I'm coming across that kind of at about the midpoint of the game. So there's only about 7.5 hours left in the game. So I don't know that that's that big of a deal in the pantheon of kind of the design elements of the game, but that's there. The other thing I realized this time, and I've definitely experienced it over, the years of constantly going back and kind of pulling it up out of my backlog, but arming certain plasmids give off noise. And I just realized this time around, because I've been playing a little bit more with kind of the types of tactics that I've been employing, sometimes it gives us that noise and you can't hear the enemies. So this is a game that's pretty highly dependent on your auditory perception and in particular spatial sound and the spatial sound design implementation in the game. And so, because a lot of times you will hear enemies and you don't know where they are, but you'll hear them, and that kind of drives how you set up to tactically engage them. When you arm something like Incinerate gives off a crap ton of noise, and you're like, oh, I can't hear where that guy is. So it makes a little bit of a difference in kind of how you proceed through the game. The U invent that you come across allows you to do things like craft special types of ammunition, which again is another thing that I just generally kind of don't play with, because I just do the Cro-Magnon approach, and I just fire all of the rounds of a type of ammunition until it runs out, and then it auto switches to the next type of ammunition. But as I'm going deeper into the game, you start getting things like more Big Daddies on the level. Typically, up until this point, it seems like you tend to only get the same number of Big Daddies that are equivalent to the little sisters on the level. But I'm now getting into levels where, okay, you've taken out both little sisters on the level, however, there are still Big Daddies around. And so that's driving me to access these other types of ammunition, because when you start getting low on grenades, you need to make sure you hit the Big Daddy with a electroshock type of ammunition to freeze him in place, before you hit him with a regular type of round. So pretty good. One really weird glitch that I've experienced, and it as I'm getting more gaming done this year, as I'm focusing only on PC. And since it's PC gaming, I'm becoming much more exposed to this notion of becoming a glitch expert, right, with older Steam games, because they seem to always have them. There's a glitch in Bioshock Remastered where once you hit the point where you start getting multiple objectives, and so typically, up until that point in the game, you get one objective at a time, and you always get a yellow arrow right at the top of the screen that points you to where you need to go. But when you get multiple objectives, that arrow doesn't point until you select which of the multiple objectives, right, you want to actually teed up. The problem in Bioshock Remastered, it has a weird glitch where you can't do that with a mouse and keyboard. And so you actually have, the workaround is you actually have to go plug in a controller, typically an Xbox controller. You plug in an Xbox controller, start navigating the screen with the D-pad, select the objective. Then the really weird thing, I finally figured that out after finally Googling it. But then what I wasn't prepared for is the really weird thing is, once you plug in a controller and start navigating with the D-pad, with the controller, it will not allow you to go back to mouse and keyboard. So then you have to unplug the Xbox controller. So I've just had my Xbox controller over on that workstation, just there dangling, not plugged in on standby, right, while I've been playing the game. So it's pretty...
So is there documentation out there? Are these known issues?
This is a known issue that just the developers never fix, which is just kind of another... I've been going on these tirades about kind of what the philosophical and conceptual impacts are of, do you own software? And I think people have some very grave misconceptions about that. But I also, in those discussions, right, I bring up the fact that, like, if you ever look at the EULA on software, you will see that software is typically not warrantied. It's not even guaranteed. It has blurbs in, like, a Rockstar EULA that says, basically, we don't guarantee that this will work. So, I mean, the end result of that is, if you guys remember when I was talking about Max Payne, and I told you, like, how broken Max Payne is, and I'm like, how is this continued to be sold on Steam, right? I mean, just with a glaring known issue like that, where the game, like, a big chunk of the game's content isn't even functional. So it's just the state of being that people deploy stuff to Steam, big AAA studios underneath. I mean, where it could grate me if I really allowed myself to get wrapped around the axle about it, like, this is Rockstar. They could afford, right, to turn some developers loose to fix this problem, but they don't. So there's just tons of things like that out there on Steam. Do
you want to jump into Bioshock Infinite as well, since we're on the Bioshock train?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is this also part of your decade revisit, or is this more of a continuation thematically from Irrational?
This is more kind of a continuation. So when I go through and load a game on Steam by assignment, I will typically also just scroll down and kind of select something of my own choosing that I want to make sure I play, so that I'm not playing everything by obligation. And so this was my pick. This game actually performs even with greater graphical fidelity and looks even more beautiful than Bioshock Remastered. It uses a lot more modern techniques. I think this is a 2016 game, so it's obviously, not...
No, it's not that.
It's not that way?
It's not that. You keep talking. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to fact check. I think it is not that.
Not that recent. That could be the case. So at any rate, the game looks great for for being the older game that it is. Obviously,
2013.
2013. Okay. So obviously, as you guys know, there's a ton of racist stuff in Bioshock Infinite, implemented from an artistic point of view to kind of flesh out, like, the story making. It is interesting in how it drives the way I approach things in that game. The part that I just left off on was I was in Finktown, which is kind of, the next, you start off in the first originating major city. Finktown is kind of the first big city that you go to away from, right, your initial set of adventures. And being that I knew, and you encounter, like, the African-American resistance force that's there, kind of being spooled up by, I forget the character's name, I think it's Diane something or something like that. But basically, you get down and there's all these propaganda things going off on the loudspeakers, and and it's basically like slave labor that's being enforced. And so I just went in and played it Bogart and just went in guns blazing. So, which is not really the way that level's designed for you to play.
No, but there's like an emotional satisfaction there, right?
right? So I didn't give anybody the benefit of the doubt. I was like, you guys are all going down. So, but yeah, but it's a great game. I've been commenting about it on Twitter. There's lots and tons of fans out there.
On your rig, is it running at a set frame rate or is it uncapped?
It is uncapped, and this game does not have a frame rate cap on it. So I don't think this one does, and I can't remember if Bioshock Remastered does or not. But yeah, this is I don't think it does. But this is where you get the sad part of it is I'm running it on a great system and I'm getting great high performance, but unfortunately my GPU is working vastly harder than it really needs to, because I can't lock the frame rate to 144 frames per second or whatever. But it's been a good thing to kind of do some burn in and get some legs under it. In Bioshock Infinite, I think one of the things that's most interesting is the achievement system on that game. It has like 80 straight stick achievements, but it also has these incremental achievements where you don't. The regular achievos you kind of hit by milestone, right? But you hit a certain point of progression in the game and it grants you the achievement. Then there's I want to say like about 69 other, they call them hidden achievements, but it's really they give you the list of achievements, at least they do on Steam. Maybe when the game first came out they were hidden.
Yeah, probably right on Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah, but they're basically incremental achievements. So as you get like kills with a certain weapon and things like that, you're also granted these additional achievements. So the basic end result right now is like there's constantly an achievement popping, like literally almost every like 5 to 10 minutes. One of the things I also like about this game is, a lot of games have kind of gone into this, not to take a dig at Elden Ring, but, that game and other games have kind of gone into, Destiny 2 is horrendously guilty of this, that the notion of a more difficult enemy is that they're bigger, right? And
bullet sponge doesn't make it more difficult. It just makes it more irritating.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And the enemies of this game are kind of notionally bigger, but they just present some other more tactical challenge at a refined nuance. One other thing I'm doing in this playthrough is I'm doing a heck of a lot more use of the trolley system, the overhead grappling system. You early on in the game you get kind of a weird, like, I don't know, it's like a 3-star glaive thing that allows you to clamber onto the overhead trolley rail system that runs around. And I never realized that. I always thought that was just for transit, but it's actually like a part of a given kind of map or level or set piece in a battle. And then actually some of your powers are things that involve, like, upon landing, like, creates AoE fire damage. Which I just never really paid attention to. And so now I'm going into some levels, like, using that thing as my main tactical approach, where I jump up on it, I arm a sniper rifle. You can slow down when you're on the trolley, so I'll jump up, just kind of whip around the whole thing at like really top speed to avoid getting hit by any fire, and then at selective points, like, hit the brakes, zoom in, scope in with the sniper rifle, and like take people out with the sniper rifle. Right, so it's just it really changes that. In Bioshock Remastered, what I commented on was there's not that verticality, and I had played that kind of in contrast to having recently played Tiny Tina's Wonderlands right before that, where there is a lot of verticality, right, and a lot of changing in the geometry, but not so much in Bioshock. Bioshock is kind of Wrath of Khan, two-dimensional thinking, right? But there's a heck of a lot more of that in Bioshock Infinite, and a lot more, like just even in the building structures, balconies and areas for you to take cover and things like that. And then of course they also have the tears. So the point in the game that I'm in now is where you're really using the tears to kind of go back and forth, almost a little, I was about to say Time Pilot, but almost a little Titanfall 2 like, where you're going back and forth between the dimensions. So, and most of all, the last thing I'll say is with both of these games, atmosphere is everything, and it's absolutely incredible, kind of the tapestry that they wove into these two games. I'm consciously aware in the original Bioshock and Bioshock Remastered, I'm consciously aware as I'm listening to the audio tapes, because I listen to all the audio logs, which I don't do in other games, that, there's a running contest in my head for who has the creepiest audio logs, right? And right now it's Professor Tannenbaum, who was like she was a Jewish biologist who was captured by the Germans, but then became like another like mad doctor who was experimenting on human beings. And I'm like, man, this lady is really super creepy. Like, not well adjusted at all. So yeah, I'm having a really great time.
Yeah, those games do atmosphere so well.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
All right, well, let's stick in the GameLogIQ. Do you want to hit your news story here, or?
Yeah, it will be. I can't remember exactly which one this was. I had two. So really quickly, Bioshock Remastered is, for people who hear this, is on sale on the Nintendo Switch for $7.99, which is about a $12 markdown from where it regularly runs at $20 until.
I think it's also part of the spring sales on both consoles as well.
Okay. Yep. And so at least on the Nintendo Switch, that runs until the 29th. And then just a quick movie update for all the movie stuff that's going on for the people who are watching the Halo television show. Just a reminder that the Bioshock film is in works with Netflix, so it doesn't have when this is going to be released. No writers, actors, or directors have been announced. It's just a thing that's in work. And we also don't know which variant of Bioshock backdrop we're going to get. We don't know if it's going to be Rapture or the undisclosed City in the Clouds from Bioshock Infinite. So it'll be interesting which way they go on that.
I gotta believe it's going to be Rapture, right? That's the atmosphere of that is probably more connected within people's minds than Columbia.
It is, but Elon Musk threw some shade at Netflix recently, calling them the woke network. Now, I didn't buy into that because I thought that was more Elon Musk foolishness. However, there may be a little bit of tinge of truth to that, and I'm like, would that make them go after the story of Columbia, because there would be more kind of social issues to be explored.
That's true, right? Yeah.
There are social issues to be explored and remastered, but there are social issues way up here. Like, how many people in modern society have read Ayn Rand, right? And will kind of get like some of the existential references in that game. It'll be way overhead, so it's tough to tell which demographic they'll go for, but it could very well be the latter.
Well, and you're right with Infinite that there's a cast of characters there in a much more full, robust way than there is in Rapture.
You kind of get a little kind of Game of Thrones level cast variety in Bioshock Infinite, yeah.
Unless they do something where they go back when Rapture was still functioning, right? And you set it at that time.
Or it's a budget play, right? Because these shows that get canceled on Netflix are the ones that are expensive. And when you look at, like, one of my favorite shows that got canceled on Netflix was Marco Polo. And Marco Polo was a great show, but it's incredibly expensive to do those period pieces when it's a super large cast. So, if you do Rapture,
that's true.
There's really not that many people, right? They're talking to the guy in audio logs, and then Atlas talking to the guy over the radio telephone or whatever. So it could be a budget play where it's very minimalist, and the only person you ever see is the protagonist, right? And the occasional splicer here and there.
All right. Tao, you're going to keep us into the teens decade with your traditional Fortnite update. So,
yes,
all yours.
Yes. So I just wanted to bring up Fortnite just because, they had the no builds mode that they started this past season with, and they've actually stuck with it. I shouldn't say stuck with it, not through the whole season, because now they did bring back the old mode where you can start building again, but they did keep the no builds mode, which I was actually kind of surprised. I thought it would just be like a limited time mode, like they do with a lot of all these other modes that they've had in the past and currently, but actually it's still there. It's still, you can just, and that's while I've been playing. Actually, when I pop into Fortnite, it's just the no builds mode. I just find it, I guess, refreshing. It's kind of a weird thing to say, I guess, even though it's basically all, it's the same mode as other battle royal modes and stuff like that. But a lot of people give it flack because it's like, well, there's no build, so I mean, what's the point? It's just another game. But I mean, I've always liked the gunplay, excuse me, in Fortnite, and even some of the things they've added, like the climbing and the sliding, I think they call it like the burly run, and some of the other the other games where you kind of just, it's like a faster run where you just throw out, you can't use a gun or anything, but
Yeah, the sprint mode.
Yeah, the extra sprint mode, because technically you have a sprint in there. I always have it on anyways, but there's like another slower sprint, I guess you can call it, or something like it's like a faster run that you have now. But yeah, that's just every time I go in there, I'm always just playing that build, and that mode has the normal solos and trios and squads, 4-player modes still that the regular build mode has. So I kind of just flip between the few of them. Usually I play solos if I'm doing like the challenges, and then I'll jump over to trios. I always like the trios a little bit better. It seems a little more manageable when you're playing against other, however many teams that that plays out to. So I'm just glad that they kept it, and I'm still playing on it, and we'll be playing in the future. And I think they had actually a couple announcements. I didn't have this on the docket here, but they had a few collaborations. I think Wu-Tang's coming to Fortnite. Sure, why not? And then I think they just dropped Moon Knight because of the TV show, and it looks like it's that character, that skin from the TV show. It's not like and he's kind of like a mummy-ish costume on the show instead of his like just kind of plain white garb that it's in the comics. So I mean, that's pretty cool. And then there's one other, I can't remember. There's one other one I just saw. I think it was a rumor for now, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah, I mean, they're always throwing that stuff in there, and it's always just kind of cool to get that stuff. And I think it was Star Wars. That's supposedly the big thing for, I think, next season, which might be a Star Wars themed season, or there'll be a lot more skins for Star Wars players. I think also because of what Obi-Wan's coming out next month, I believe, in May. So they got all
that makes sense to tie it together with that. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. But like I said, I'm really enjoying the no build mode, and I'm seeing a lot of people on some of the other servers, the Discord servers, saying, "Hey, I've been playing Fortnite, and I only play the no build mode." So it's kind of nice that they've kept that around. And I think it was a lot of people, saying, "Hey, I want this, I want this build to stay, or this mode to stay." And the opposite. I mean, they kind of listen to the fans here and there, but I mean, there's a lot of times in the past where people were clamoring for other stuff that they've taken out, or some stuff they put in, which sometimes they do, like when they had the mechs in there. Those things were like super overpowered, and they kind of took them out and like depowered them a little bit and came back, and people still complain, but at least they try to do some things here and there with the buffs and stuff like that, but or the rebuffs and stuff. But yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Nice. Great. GameLogIQ, coming back around to you for another teens game here with Age of Wonders 3. Was this in your back catalog, or did you end up picking it up in your kind of decade exploration?
Yeah, I wound up buying it, and I know, even despite the fact that I said on the show that I had picked it as my assignment, but if I'd gotten into my backlog, I wasn't going to buy it if I didn't already have it. It was $7.50, so I just went ahead and bought it. Right, for the number of hours of entertainment that title should provide, I figured it was worth it. So Age of Wonders 3, if you're not familiar, there's obviously there's been 4 iterations in the title. I realized as I went back to this one, the last time I played it, I touched it, was Age of Wonders 2, which I played back like in the kind of early 2000s. It's been spent a lot of time with. It used to kind of kick my butt, back then. But it's by Triumph Studios, which is a Danish developer, and an independent developer. Although this is a game with tons of production quality in it, so it doesn't play like an indie game. But it's a 4X game, kind of set in a fantasy time setting. So I think I'm getting to a point that I dislike, and I'm guilty of it, but I dislike the references to Civilization, or the comparison of every game kind of in this genre to, oh, it's a Civilization game. But, you know, for people who are unfamiliar, that probably works better than anything. But there are some interesting things kind of in the implementations in this. You know, I studied the first scenario, the tutorial scenario, kind of forces you to utilize or to research basic seafaring. And so I was like, okay, because it gives you a gap in the geography that you have to cross in order to take on this enemy camp. And so I researched that, but I was like, I don't know exactly what the implementation of this is. So I was kind of planning out my tactics, and I was like, well, you know, I need to marshal, you know, because your army units have a maximum of your armies have a maximum of 6 units that they can have in them. I had more than 6 units at the time, but I felt like I needed more than 6 units to take on this camp. There's a very kind of orchestrated way that you have to go about, like, attacking a camp. You need to have armies, as far as I can tell, you've got to have armies in the adjacent square for them to all be pulled into the same battle. So I kind of had to marshal my forces on my launching point and then send them across the ocean, like, near simultaneously. I had to land one force on the beachhead and kind of secure the beachhead to make sure I had a force there capable of defending in case any force sortied out of the enemy city. Then I had to bring my other forces aboard. An interesting thing was I had cast a magic spell which allowed you to generate crow scouts. And so I'd had these crows kind of going around the map, like removing all like the fog of war over the different geographic areas. So I was like, I know it told me that I had to cross the ocean, but I'm going to scout out all these other approaches to determine if there's another way to do it. And so I found the enemy, like, kingdom headquarters, right, down in kind of the southern part of the map. And I think the way the scenario was constructed, it was constructed so that if you had tried that southern route with an army and discovered that that kingdom site, that it then gave you a squadron of trebuchets, right? Well, I had discovered it with my crows, so I'm like, well, I'm not taking on the city with just a squadron of trebuchets. I have no army down here. So what I actually did was I actually retreated that squadron of trebuchets off, and I was like, oh, I have basic wayfaring. I'm going to actually put these guys to sea, have them transit up north. Now I'm going to have them join my northern force, which was 2 armies. Now I've got 3, and then I'm going to assault this enemy camp that I have to take on. And so when I assaulted the enemy camp, I had 3 armies. And so this was my plan, but then I was like, okay, now I got to actually move and see if this works, because I don't know exactly how basic. So it turns out that it worked. I was able to make that beach landing. I had the crows up, kind of flying in a circular pattern, so I could kind of scout out, you know, and maintain line of sight of all the different approaches to see if the enemies were coming towards me. Then I stacked all my units up around that enemy city and then launched an assault. With the way they were arranged geographically around the city, the trebuchets were placed at the back. They had palisade walls up around this encampment, so I couldn't just barge in and attack. But the way my units were dispersed, what it allowed me to do was take the trebuchets and knock down the rear palisades, send a unit of cavalry around to the back, since I could afford to have them spend the extra movement because they were so fast. Then I had a front force where my hero unit was that led a frontal attack, but then I had units coming in from the back and from the side who had broken through the palisade walls to kind of pinch the enemy forces in between. So it was really a wonderful, you know, it plays wonderfully just in terms of the level and types of different tactics that you can employ to kind of take on the enemy forces. The leveling system, right, your heroes have levels. They have about 8 or 9 different fields that they can apply to, you know, level up and gain new skills or reinforce their skills that they have. I think the only thing that I feel like is a little kind of stingy is the magic system. I haven't dug too far into it, but it seems like you're given a maximum amount of magic points, and then once you expend them, they're just gone. So there's got to be some way. I guess you have to hit a mana shrine, but there's no natural innate native organic way for you to regenerate mana in order to then continue to utilize spells. So right now it feels like you have to go like geographically way out of your way and spend movement and transit time in this kind of strategic mode of the map to regain mana. So I need to play around with that a little more and see if that's actually the case. But like I said, Age of Wonders 2 was a game that I had on systems when I was kind of going around the country traveling for 2 years for work, where I was like never really in one place stable, with a homestead. So Age of Wonders 2 was a kind of game you could just pop up on a laptop and play for hours and hours and hours, and kind of that just one more turn kind of mode and method. And it's definitely kind of hitting those feels again. Interestingly enough, I think, and I haven't been keeping up with it, but I guess I had always assumed that one of my other favorite 4X games, Galactic Civilization, had kind of wrapped things up with GalCiv 3, but I guess GalCiv 4 now is imminent also. So
they're coming out soon. Yeah, it sounds like, in the next couple of months. This quarter.
So summer of 4X, the Age of Wonders 3 will be an effective greasing of the wheels that might allow me to slipstream right into GalCiv 4 for this summer. So it's a pretty good time.
Nice. Okay, now we are back to you with another 2017 game, Ark Survive Evolved. And you're on mute, so whatever you said, it was great. I agree. But
I think you're on mute on Discord, so your software muted.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I forgot I had muted that before. Yeah, so Moments, that was the game mode from MLB the Show before I get to Ark. That's where they kind of give you like a few missions, like a few challenges or so. Yeah, so they pick like a moment in time basically, and you got to do something. So yeah. All right, so Ark. So this is actually what I've been playing mostly this past week, and mostly because it's a lot of involved gameplay that you got to do in here, like if you're taming a dinosaur or building a base or stuff like that. And I'm playing on the official server, so and you can kind of tweak settings, like if I was to play like on my own server, start up my own server, of like taming speed or how much resources you get from when you're mining stuff or getting stuff. But this is an official server I was playing on only because when you start up your own server, you can't play on that system at that point, so you kind of just like stuck. At least on like if it's a dedicated server, if you just kind of play like your own, like I won't say single player, but like kind of like your own player console game, you can go in there. But the one thing and I'm surprised they haven't fixed this, or at least extended like the distance. Maybe they have. You kind of like, so if I start a game, I'm playing with my son a lot these past few weeks, and then one of his friends jumps in. So if you just kind of start your own game on your own system, and you're playing on it, you're kind of, the other players are like stuck to you basically. They can only go like a certain distance away from you before they get like rubber banded back to you if they go too far. So I was looking for an official server that we can play on. And the problem with that was, and I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, is that like a lot of these servers have been up for a long time, like just like pretty much since the game started, and like everybody's kind of taken their territory, and we're just playing on PvE, we're not playing PvP, but still people can like put down like columns. I think I mentioned this too, like they put like a column down, and you're kind of restricted from how far away or how close to that column you can yourself can build. So it's kind of annoying, like and I get it too. Like you don't want like people like right next to each other, or have another person, or other player, group, or clan like building around on top of you. But it just gets annoying because people can just put those down like everywhere on the map, and then you're kind of screwed at that point, and you can't build there. So I was looking for one, and I finally found one, and we've just been building our base and taming dinosaurs and stuff like that. So it's been a really fun experience, and it's nice. And all this other stuff too, it goes a lot quicker when you're playing with other people. So I'm doing
it by myself. Has your son played a lot, or is this kind of a new experience with him?
We played a little bit last year. Actually, over the last couple of years, we would kind of jump into it. I remember during
COVID stuff, you were talking about playing together.
Yeah, we played a little bit, and that was kind of his first foray, into like a survival game. So he was like, he kind of wasn't getting it, and kind of got frustrated a lot, especially with this one because this is kind of brutal, especially when you're first starting out. So, but then I don't. I don't know why he started playing again. I think he might have just been kind of like a lot of the games that he's played, and I've kind of jumped into too. He just saw like a YouTube video. One of his YouTubers just started playing it or whatever, or he saw like a past video from them, and he started playing it. So he might have just saw that and just wanted to try it again. And now that he has I gave him my old Xbox One S. It's a little bit more powerful than just I think we were playing on the Switch too before, and that's kind of it's kind of rough on the Switch. So, it's a lot better at least on the S. It takes a little bit longer, to load into it, but I mean, once you're in it, it's pretty good. I haven't really seen him having any issues or anything. So, every so often the server lags, but it's just like server lag. Like I'll even get that on my Series X, or if I'm playing them. Sometimes I'll play on my PC also through Game Pass. I load it on there, but yeah, we've been having a blast, and sometimes
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, stuff happens, and it's like, oh man, I can't believe I lost a dinosaur or something like that. But stuff like that happens on these type of games. So he's learning. he's learning rough.
So this brings me to my next challenge that I recall from listening to last week's episode. So you talked about Ark and you talked about Subnautica, and you indicated that you fell off of Subnautica because you couldn't bear kind of having more than one survival game kind of in heavy rotation, right, in your playlist.
Yeah.
Survival's an older game. Ark's an older game. I say this respectfully, and I say this as a hypothesis.
Yes.
Let me suggest just for a moment that Ark is not a great game. So my question becomes, if Subnautica is, and if Ark's going to be in your heavy rotation for a while, where's the break point, and what's the criteria where you would let another game in, particularly a highly reviewed, well-reviewed, critically acclaimed game, right? Where does that get a chance to get into, or does that ever get a chance to get into the mix if Ark stays on heavy rotation? And I ask this question a little bit because I'm trying to kind of pull some threads and some concepts and ideas and philosophies around the gaming community on when you attach yourself to a game as a service, right? Where's the give to let new games in, right? In kind of this current model that all of us are kind of in to a certain extent.
No, yeah, and I get that question because the same thing happened to me when I was, obviously since I've been doing this podcast for a while now, that I was like heavy into Call of Duty, when I first started, and pretty much this whole run here, and then finally I got kicked out of it. Probably because of just Battle Royale in general, but more so, I guess more so eventually with Fortnite. Before that, even it was with Battlegrounds. Is that what's called?
PUBG.
I can't even remember now.
Yeah.
PUBG, yeah. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And I think it was just like that. Excuse me. In that case, it was kind of like an evolution of shooting games for me, at least. But Call of Duty and Battlefield, it's just you're playing. More so, I guess, Call of Duty. It's just you're on a smaller team. Was it 5-on-5 or 6-on-6, whatever the matches are, the player count is. And then I got into this Battlefield, this other shooter, but it was like something totally different that I just never experienced before. And I was like, at first I was like, kind of the thought of like going into a game and like having, dying within the first like 30 seconds, which is what happened to me, obviously. I think it happens to a lot of people when they first start playing a battle royale game. It's like, I don't want to do it. But then as I played it, obviously, you get better at it. And I was just, I think it was just that mentality. I have to get past that. And I did. And I don't mind it now. I just, especially if I find like a group of people that I can play with, then I'm going to stick, I'll stick with them and I'll stick with that game. And that's just happened that way. And with this one, honestly, I like dinosaurs, so that's what's drawn me to this game. Ultimately, the most finite level, I just want to, smallest level, it's like I just like dinosaurs, and it's just kind of cool to tame these creatures, and I've always liked them, even since I was a kid. Obviously, like kids always like dinosaurs and stuff like that, but I never outgrew that that had that liking of these creatures. So I was like, it's just kind of cool for me that I can tame these things, and they have other kind of like ancient creatures too, not just dinosaurs. But that was kind of the draw for me. And I think the reason I just fell off of it was because when I first started playing, it was basically a game preview, and like I would have stuff wiped out, obviously when the servers were updated, or, they would just wipe it to wipe it. They had to clean it, and get a clean, image of it. And I kind of just fell off it. And now that my son is playing it, and now that's like officially released, it's pretty much, there's problems here and there, but you're gonna have this. You got this big open world, that you're gonna be having issues with. So, but I think ultimately that was the main reason I'm sticking with this. And Subnautica was fine, I guess, but I don't know. It's something with that kind of underwater environment too that was just like, I don't know, kind of weird, but kind of restricting. Obviously, you have this big ocean and it's like huge. You can explore in it, but I think being kind of confined to, especially at the beginning, because you have like, you only have a certain amount of air that you have to, that you have in your tanks and stuff. So you have to like constantly be going up to the surface, or there's devices that you can kind of bring down with you that kind of give you air. But then you have to, if you go too far, you have to come back, all the way back and do that kind of stuff. And with Ark, it's not as restrictive, at least to me. You have like, hunger and food that you have to worry about, but you can carry that stuff with you, and it seems to me a little bit more manageable than, having to go back for air and stuff like that. And like I said, I didn't think the game was bad. It was just, I can't get into another like survival game like that where I have to constantly be looking up stuff, and that's gonna be taking up my time too. And researching like what do I have to do to capture this like underwater creature, or how do I build this structure or device that I have in there. And Arc kind of gives you that a little bit. They give you like, there's like no explanation other than just like the initial, hey, press A to press A to jump, or press B to attack and stuff like that in Subnautica. After that, it's just like, here you're kind of on your own. So and Arc does a little bit better to kind of explain things, at least kind of the basics of each section. So I don't know. I think that's why I kind of stick with it still.
As you got into that, I was like not lining up with you, but when you hit that point where you said it's mainly because I love dinosaurs, I was, at the start of your thing, what I wanted to mention but I didn't say was, it's not me kind of challenging, right, your judgment, right? Because the truth of the matter is, when I dipped my foot into Star Citizen, it was also very tough for me to shake myself free of that, right? And I realized when you hit that thing, and at first I was thinking that was a matter of like commitment that I'd made, and like not wanting to lose that kind of potential return on investment, not from a money perspective, but from a time put into the game. But when you hit that thing about it's because I love dinosaurs, I realized I was like, it's because I love spaceships and science fiction, and that's like always been my like. The first thing I glommed onto when I was a kid was the notion of Star Trek, right? And science fiction that has systems and frameworks and structure, which is unfortunately a thing that the Star Wars franchise has lost, and why I bounce off of that. But that's another topic. But I realized that's one of the reasons why it was tough for me to fall off of Star Citizen was because. It was always true, and I always recognized that I was in love with the ideal and the potential, but I now also realize, no, it's because of that particular fictional medium hook that I also have that, even as a kid growing up with books, right? When you have, I guess, I think now as I'm getting older, I too am starting to dislike this mixing and muddling of the sci-fi fantasy genre. No, it's not sci-fi fantasy. Sci-fi is its own thing, and fantasy is its own thing. And I get attracted to sci-fi. I tend not to get as much attracted to, I read the Dune Chronicles like almost religiously. I never stuck with something like Tolkien, right? But it was always that sci-fi, and that was definitely part of the reason why I kept my foot in Star Citizen for so long.
Yeah, and for me, that was another reason I got into No Man's Sky too, because I always like space stuff and sci-fi stuff too, and I'm just kind of the person when I find something, I'm just gonna I'm gonna dig into it, and I'm gonna be in it for a while, like obviously because I've I said COD, Fortnite, I've been in those. I honestly I didn't have it on here because I always play it, but I always play Rocket League probably at least once a day, either on my Switch or on my phone or something. So it's just like when I find something, I just I just like to play it, play it. So and sometimes I get sick of it, there's games where I'm just like I couldn't I can't even touch certain games here, now and then. But for the most part, I'm like I can just stick to games, and I honestly have to force myself to play something else, which I don't know. Like I don't know if I should. Like I guess that's kind of another question for another day. Maybe like should I do that if I'm having fun with Ark? So I don't know. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, right. If you're playing for content, that's different than playing for enjoyment.
Yeah.
And so, Tal, stay on the mic here. You've got one quick news story here of a couple of VR related announcements. We get the announcement we get a date for the NFL VR game, and you've got another one here that got announced.
Yeah, so they had the Quest Gaming Showcase 2022 this past, I think it was Wednesday, I believe. It was yesterday. And they ran through a good bit of games. Some notables. The first one actually they start off on this IGN article is actually one they ended the showcase with, which is Ghostbusters VR. And it's going to have a single player and co-op. I don't think they've really said in this article and some of the other articles I said, I don't know if the co-op part is still, through that main campaign or if it's something totally different. The trailer they showed was basically just like a CGI or just like a CGI trailer. But it looks like you can maybe like customize your character and stuff because like the one person looked like she had like this weird I don't know if it's supposed to be a ghost or just like a little weird almost like a knit cap on. It was just like pink and purple, colors, like bright colors, totally contrasted their kind of tannish, brownish uniforms that they wear. So and they're just hunting like one ghost. So I don't know what that's, if it's like a separate mode or like I said, if it's through the campaign. They had a Mercenaries VR, which is coming to Resident Evil 4 VR and actually I think that came out that day, which was a horde mode that was, I guess, popular back in that. I still haven't played Resident Evil 4. I don't know. That's like a sin or something when you say that online. It's like, what? You never played that? But so that mode has come out. The Walking Dead, The Saints and Sinners Chapter 2, Retribution, which I still got to play through more of that first part. That's coming out. NFL Pro Era. Yeah, that's the new officially licensed VR NFL game that's going to be coming out. It looks, I think, in the showcase, it sounded like you're just playing the quarterback, but it looked like you can run too at some certain points during the trailer. So I don't know if there was just a contrast there that didn't realize or something different. I don't know if that was a different mode.
Maybe there's skill sets, maybe a mode, like a skills challenge type of thing I could see. But from a gameplay perspective, it'd be very difficult to do to take you out of the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Any idea whether that's a game that plays in? It seems and sounds like that would be a game that you would need to be in untethered mode for. From a gameplay mechanics perspective.
I mean, if you're just
also coming out for PlayStation as well. I think it's coming out on multiple VR platforms, so it does make me wonder if it can be untethered.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just playing the quarterback too. I mean, I guess if you're like trying to
yeah, but how do you
360
drop
around?
How do you do a 3-step drop if you're tethered?
Yeah, I mean the cable is actually fairly long that you use. Probably could do it.
What if you want to do a 5-step drop and run a West Coast offense? There's lots of options here.
Buy a longer cable. No, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, like DB said, I think it's going to be on multiple systems, so multiple headsets.
Yeah,
it
sounds like it's
PSVR.
not.
Sorry, go ahead.
Like the dream for me, right, would be to play football, right? And so it sounds like it's, no offense to the game, it's just I suddenly had this idealistic thought in my head of realizing my football player dreams of actually playing the football and like I said, doing a 3-step drop, so.
Yeah. I gotta say though, as somebody who really enjoyed 2MD, the VR football game where it's tackling dummies, but it is incredibly satisfying and you can work up a sweat, and really you're just playing the quarterback. But it is because it's coming at you from multiple angles. You've got to move around a little bit, or at least get rid of the ball and keep track of your receivers. When you're in that quarterback mode, even tracking your receivers is difficult. So it could be a whole lot of fun.
Is PlayStation VR, is that wireless or are you tethered?
You're tethered. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, the specs for the new one, I think it's still tethered as well.
I think. I mean, we'll have to double check, but from what I remember, it's tethered. But the technology, the evolutionary improvement is that it's a thinner, lighter weight cable.
Okay.
It's not, and I think it's one cable. I think before was it two cables in the older one?
Two cables, yeah.
Yes, I think they got it under one, and it's thinner and lighter. I think.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, and actually the graphics look actually pretty decent for on that, the Pro AR football. So I mean, it's not like Madden level or anything, but it looked obviously better than the 2M. I think I've seen that one, the one that you're talking about, DB, but definitely looks pretty nice. So and then up next we got Among Us VR, which it's kind of weird. I don't know, maybe it's just because of the that you had that isometric perspective in the original game, and this one's like a 3D environment. So I don't know. It looks kind of weird. Moss Book 2, which is I don't know, is that like a platformer sort of game?
Yeah, it's a kind of it's like a diorama puzzle action a little bit. Yeah, Moss Book 1. Book 2 just came out this spring for PlayStation VR, and so it was anticipated that it was coming to other platforms.
Okay. Yeah, Bone Lab, which there was a game called Boneworks on. I've seen it on Steam.
It's good. It also is very fluid in its movement, so it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten motion sick, but I can only play it for a little while.
Yeah. Okay. Then you have Cities VR, which was that was originally on the consoles, the original version. So just like a SimCity type of game. And then you had some DLC for Beat Saber, and then I think they kicked off with Red Matter 2, which is just kind of a single player game. I've never played it myself, but it looks interesting, so I'll have to see. And then Aspire 2, which kind of looked like you're kind of like a robotic spy, I guess, because it looked like they kept saying like something like choose your avatar or something like that during the trailer. So it looks pretty cool. And then finally, one that actually looks pretty decent was Ruins Magus. It's kind of like an anime stylish graphics, but it's basically like an RPG. So and you're basically just playing as a mage, I guess, through the whole game. So that could be interesting. They've done magic in some of the other games, and usually plays out pretty well. And this is kind of built around, just being a wizard. So hopefully, this plays a lot tighter than some of the other games that it's been on, or Magic has been on. So, yeah. And then, yep, that was it. So, but yeah, some decent titles on there. Nothing like super jumped out at me, but probably the only thing was the NFL game. Was the only thing that I was like really interested in, just because I'm kind of surprised there's not more sports games though. I mean, like dedicated, not just kind of like a what do they call it, Quest Labs, I think, on the Quest, where it's kind of like I guess a game preview basically for them. So I don't know, but I always thought there'd be more sports games. It kind of felt like there would be. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Kind of like there's obviously a lot of first person shooters, but I thought sports games was going to be another thing that I would find a lot of, but there's really not too many out there right now. But yeah, anything jumped out at you guys? I don't know if you actually watched it or just like looked through the article, but.
I mean, I can see in the fall release for the NFL sponsor game makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, having it line up with the start of the season, you've got a lot of eyeballs where the NFL could be advertising to, and a natural kind of a way that they might try to expand into a little more casual audience, just like some of the other MetaQuest commercials around exercise or space exploration, things like that. Like they've got a couple different vectors of how they're trying to attract players.
Yeah, nothing for me. My VR headsets are stacked in the utility closet, in danger of going the same way as my consoles.
Uh-oh.
All right, so let's wrap it up for the night, gentlemen. For a slow news week, we had plenty to talk about because without a whole lot of news, we had lots of games to talk about. So that was great. it was good to have that conversation. Glad to be back with you all again. As I had mentioned at the top of the show, next week is our Pix Plays assignment related to cloud gaming. And as we got a little bit of a taste here tonight with Tao and GameLogic's conversation around the use case scenarios of streaming. So we will see. We will have lots more conversation next week as well. Gentlemen, any final thoughts? Any announcements that you want to make before we head out for the week?
The only thing I want to close up on is that question about PSVR 2 still uses a high-quality USB-C cable. So thinner, lighter weight cable.
Nice.
The baggage that this one is dropping is the camera. So you get to drop the camera, use a lighter weight cable, but you're still tethered.
All right. Thank you. Good fact checking. Excellent. All right, gentlemen, for myself, DBQ Hams, GameLogic, and Taomaster99, this has been Enough to Keep Going, 238 for the week of April 21st. Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you very much. So for myself and for all of us here, play the games you love those you play with, and take care of yourself. Good night, everybody.